Okay, so we're live. This is a very belated episode. We went to record this a couple weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. But we got sick. Me and Oliver got sick right after Worlds, and then Kenny got sick. So this is our uh, Dynasty post pre-release design analysis review, episode 13 of the OK&Y podcast.
That's right, and we would have been the first ones ever to release this clearly, but we were
Absolutely.
delayed by COVID and other illnesses.
Yes. So obviously, my name's Eachin. I am a level 2 judge. I can say that now because I think this is the first time after we've recorded an episode that I have been level 2. I'm pretty sure that's right. So I've been level 2 for a couple months now, but first time after I can record it.
That's right. We are consistent recorders.
Yes. Kenny, introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Kenny. I'm a flesh and blood. More it feels like I'm a flesh and blood critic from Australia.
Yeah.
I do play sometimes. I played much more earlier on, but I'm still around.
And you've got your own board game, Scrap, that's going to be it just got on GameFound a couple hours
Yeah.
before this podcast.
Yeah, so it's been a long time coming. I mean, that's more what I've been doing than playing Flesh and Blood for the past few years, is designing Scrap. But yeah, it came up. It finally got approved and got put onto GameFound in its preview form. I suppose we can probably pop a link below it later on. But yeah, check it out. I'm really proud of it. I know both Yichin and Oliver have played it. Oliver much more than Yichin, but and no bias, but you guys enjoy it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I only played the early builds though, so I haven't played the recent builds. I can't say I enjoy it now, but I probably will.
Yeah, well, it's better now, so hopefully you would enjoy it. And Oliver has played a lot more.
Yep, it's really good. I really like it.
Yeah.
Definitely no bias.
Oh yeah, definitely not.
Speaking of which, Oliver, go ahead and introduce yourself.
I'm Oliver. I scrubbed out of Worlds. That's all.
You were 13th at one point.
Yes.
You almost got there.
And then Blitz.
Contrary to my advice, you chose Oldhim for Blitz.
Because I wanted to pummel people and I wanted to have fun, and I've already played a lot of Prism, so I played Icelander and CC. I want a variety.
So, but you were so close. You were 9-2, and then you went 0-5 in Blitz, right?
Yep. Oof. The perfect record for Blitz.
Okay, so
for reference, Oliver also second at the calling somewhere. I can't remember. Where was it?
I don't remember either.
It was calling New Jersey. Wow, how do I know this? Maybe you don't know.
Yeah, so the calling New Jersey, and very, very, very close to first. So
it's old news now. Nobody cares about that.
That's right. You are a has-been now that Prism's rotated out.
Yep.
All right. So today we're just gonna go over Dynasty and talk about the design of Dynasty. Most people have talked about the impact and then talked about the new archetypes available. We're gonna go into a little bit of that, but mostly we're gonna talk about compliment and criticize some of the design that we see in Dynasty.
Especially that last one.
Yeah. I actually wanted to start off with Arachne because that is our main headliner. A completely new class, assassin class. What do you guys think? I know, Oliver, you've been playing Arachne a little bit. What's your take on Arachne right now?
I think Arachne is too fair. If they were released in like the crew meta or the arc meta, I think they would be really strong. But right now, compared to every other deck, they're too fair. But otherwise, it's very well designed, very flavorful, and actually quite fun to play. So I'm enjoying it.
See, that's the funny thing, right? Is when you say it's too fair, that's probably the exact reason why when I was looking at the design, I was like, wow, this actually seems quite fun and quite cool. Because again, it kind of harkens back to earlier design before traits and stuff were a thing.
Talents,
and I think, talents?
Yeah, talents. And I think the main reason for that is that it was planned to release an arc alongside Runeblade, Mech, and Wizard. But they realized that his main mechanic, which is managing cards, did not mesh with the other three heroes. So they shelved him and then put Azalea instead, which is why James admitted that Azalea had the least development time out of all four of the arc heroes.
I thought they said that.
And we'll get into Ranger today. Just
spicy over there.
Stay tuned. But yeah, I mean, I think that's the key thing, right? Is Arachne does feel like those original designs, which I think is quite cool. And I think overall, like, he's a bit of a one-trick pony. I do wish that his abilities had some slight more variety to them. But, I think overall he's pretty cool.
Any favorite cards they have out of his current toolkit that you like, just design wise or art wise or something else wise?
Yeah, there's a few. I mean, I think that surgical extraction is cool. I enjoy surgical extraction because it's of its little magic nods. I think that's
Yeah.
kind of cute.
Mhm.
I know that there's been a lot of talk. It's quite hard to get or something, right? Like all the assassin stuff is like short printed or something.
I've heard about that. I'm actually not sure if it's actually short printed. I think people just have a little bit of confirmation bias because it's like, oh, I only opened one surgical
Yeah,
this set, so this case, so obviously it's short printed.
yeah. But surgical extraction I think is pretty cool. I love the art for some reason on Leave No Witnesses. Um,
Yeah, a lot of people
I just
do.
I just think it's great. I mean, I can't imagine why. I think that it's pretty cool. I think that's kind of art and thematic design wise. I think the naming of some of the cards is pretty cute. Like I enjoy Cut to the Chase as well. I suppose that's still thematic.
Yeah, I
Actual,
like
you
how
go,
much we
you
were
go.
memeing. I like how much we were memeing on some of the cards because it's just like because Plunder the Poor is just such a evil guy type card name, right? Like this is like something that you expect that like some minor like villain that just like pops up for 2 episodes just for the heroes to like beat up, right? Just some guy like
Hmm.
stealing stuff from like poor people.
Yep.
And you also have stuff like Fleece the Frail where he's like stealing stuff from the beggar. And it's just like, oh wow, this guy's a bit of a jerk. It's
Hmm.
pretty funny, just like how much it's like, just like oh, just beating up on these random poor people. You're an
Yeah.
assassin.
It's just a tool.
Yeah,
I guess this kind of comes into his overall design, right? We talked about this a little bit when he was being spoiled, but I guess a key thing with Arachne, right, is that you want multiple of his attacks on the chain so that all of their contracts can trigger, right?
yep,
And what we talked about was it's kind of cool that he doesn't naturally have any go again on his stuff. And
yes.
then they printed, or they not they printed, they spoil, what's it called?
Black
It's
Tech
the Black Tech
Whisperers.
Whisperers.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know it's not exactly the same because there is some level of cost to it,
Mhm.
but I do wish that you had to try a little harder to get go again. It's not bad design because obviously it does have some requirement on it, but it is also a bit of a rich get richer kind of thing where it rewards you for being successful. So if you're really struggling, then you're just going to stay further and further behind. So I don't know how I feel about the design for it.
Yeah, I part of me definitely wishes that the M and the Majestic and the Legendary were swapped between Black Tech and Mask, just because I feel like that Black Tech to a lot of players, especially like intermediate and lower players, Black Tech feels more critical,
Hmm.
and it's definitely like a card that you want people to get their hands on, so they can play around with it and be like, oh, it's not as good as I thought. It's still good, but it's not as good as I thought.
Hmm.
Um, Oliver, I know you were playing around with Snapdragon scalers, right?
No, I thought about it. Black Tech Whispers actually never goes off for me because most of the time I'm blocking with 3 cards and then attacking with 1 or something. That's currently the playstyle that I have for the deck. It's very rare that I ever get Black Tech off, and then it's even rare that I even have 2 good attacks to throw at my opponent.
Sounds like your playstyle is losing.
It is.
Any
But yeah,
favorite cards from you, Oliver?
definitely not Slay the Scholars because that would be biased, right?
Yeah, of course, 100% biased.
I actually really love Shred. It's good when they want to block, but then it's also trash if they don't block. So
It
it's
blocks
just
for 3, right? That's the main part, right? It's an attack action that blocks for 3,
yeah,
which
and
is
it
really
costs 0.
important. It costs 0. It has good art, and it's also a very simple card, right?
Yeah.
It's a simple card that we haven't seen too much of, and I think that's with all the text that's on the other assassin cards. I think it is very helpful to have a couple more simple cards that you can just be like, okay, cool, that's what it does.
Yep. And also has like really interesting interactions with Temper, which I find hilarious.
Yeah,
And yeah, I don't know. I think it's just a good card overall. Like you'd see it's -4 defense and you'd be like, "Oh, that's very overrate." But then you have to think about it and be like, "Oh, how many times are you actually going to get that -4?" And it only has value if they block. So, yep. Yeah, I think it's a good card. Probably like one of my favorite cards from the Assassin toolkit. And
yeah. It seems like on the LSS side, they really like Regicide, and I was like okay on Regicide when they first spoiled it. I think it's very cute, but the more I think about it, the more I'm just like, this card feels, I don't know, it feels a little forced. Where it's like, oh, okay, you really
I
want that.
hate it. For
I,
reference,
I
I
don't mind
really
the
hate it.
so I don't mind the double lose clause. I think I do mind the when they first spoil it, the last line of text was like, "Oh, okay, cool. It's a finisher. I can expect other cards to interact with banished cards later on in the game." And it's only that card, so I feel like it was a bit of a bait and switch on that part. Obviously, the assassin still interacts with banished cards by checking the banish itself, but it feels like Regicide was like a bit of a bait and switch for me, where it's like, oh, I really wanted more cards that made you care about what you blocked with and what you got banished, and that really didn't happen.
Yeah, for me, the reason I hate Regicide is number one, legendary. So not that its rarity is legendary, but it's a one of in your deck. So that's already that for me already speaks of generally bad things. Don't love one ofs unless they start the game in play.
Yep.
Then it's extremely niche, right? So it's like, I mean, you only use it if royals are a thing. Then it's got the problem of if royals are a thing, now you've got this one of card in your deck that sometimes will just like win you the game on the spot. There's no in between. It's literally just an all in. It's really non-flexible. Yeah, it blocks for 3. Yeah, it pitches for 3. Sure, like you can use it for those things. But as far as actually playing the card goes, it does one thing, which is you'll only ever play it when you can certainly win the game. For me, that just doesn't feel exciting. Like, I get that thematically it's probably something tied to it and kind of cool, but as an actual functional card, it's, for me, one of the worst designs of any card I've seen in Flesh and Blood. I know it may seem extreme, but I really, really dislike Regicide.
Yeah, I think I'll mind it myself. I do think that there is reason for you to use it when your opponent isn't royal. But yeah, I think the way it reads, you instantly think, oh, okay, royal is gonna actually matter this set, and it didn't. Well, it almost didn't.
Yeah.
People are actually running Crown of Dominion for various heroes, but I still don't think Regicide is worth running regardless of that.
I mean, as I said, that's what I mean. Like, if it were the case that royals were really dominant, it just feels weird that this one particular hero has one card that literally just says, "Is your opponent playing royal? Cool. You have the potential to win the game off this one card." I understand you need more setup than that. It's not just Regicide that's going to win you the game.
Yeah, they have that. They have that against Ranger too. It's like any card that destroys Arsenal just wins you the game against Ranger, right?
At least it doesn't flat say win the game. Like, I mean, you can have any card and it's good against Ranger. Like any card.
Yeah, that's true. Any
Even
card that destroys a
Regicide is good
headpiece.
against Ranger. Yeah, it's just like there's silver bullets and then there's Regicide. I already don't love silver bullets. I understand why they exist, but Regicide is like the most silver of bullets.
Yeah, which is why I'm glad it exists. If it has to exist, I'm glad it exists at Majestic and like as basically just a throwaway Majestic, right? I don't think they expected the card itself to be particularly strong.
No, I don't
especially
think
with
so
all the
either.
other cards in the set in the Majestic slot for Assassins. So it's probably just like we have a slot here. We want this to tie the story. I like its purpose. If we see a Regicide kill on stream, I will be very surprised.
I mean, it'll be a hype moment, right? I accept that would be like massive if you can imagine like a world championship or like a calling or something being one where you Regicide your opponent. That's something that's going to be heard about for ages.
Yeah.
So I can appreciate on a meta sense that being a cool thing, but as an actual game design thing, yeah, I really dislike it.
Okay, cool. So, any other thoughts on Assassin, Kenny or Oliver?
Spider's Bite is also very nice.
Like, it's really good.
Yeah, I think so. They did not want to make Arachne into limited because of like banishing the top card would make every game go to fatigue, and we actually kind of saw that with your Chaff Goblin set.
Yeah,
like Spider's Bite, really freaking good. Banishing cards from their deck, really good. So yeah, I can see why they didn't make it into, or Arachne didn't make it into Arcane Rising.
Yeah, I can see a higher power cube make use of Arachne, but I don't think most normal sets would actually want this version of Assassin. I'm sure there's other versions of Assassin they have like in the shelf that might be more suitable for limited. But yeah, I can see why they don't want this one to be in limited. Well, let's go ahead and move on to the other sections. We'll go from the top, I guess.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
We'll start with Draconic, and we'll start with the first card spoiler of the set, which made most people who like elegant design vomit, which is Emperor Draconic here. What are your thoughts, Kenny? This is gonna be fun.
Oh boy, do I hate it. So and this actually ties into pretty much every look. I'm not trying to be a wet blanket on everything. I realize I'm saying I hate the previous card and I hate these two. I mean, if you've been listening to our podcast at all, you should really come to expect this from me. But I really dislike all the Draconic cards in this set. And the reason is very specific. They all refer to a very specific other card in the game, right? So for me, I just really find that to be very unclean design. Like it feels non-creative. It's like, okay, I have to play this card with this other thing. Cool.
Yep.
I'm not really joining any dots. The dust specifically, like they actually took me a little bit to grok what they even did. So it wasn't intuitive that it basically just makes them not Phantasm. That's
Yeah,
what they do, right?
they're worded as if it's a negative, like right, like it's everything but has phantasm,
Yes.
which makes you take a while to process. Like, oh, okay, so this doesn't have phantasm.
Yes, yeah. And it's like it's good. You don't want it to have Phantasm, but it seems very strange. And the fact that they made 3 cards for it, like, not a fan. And same with the Emperor. I like the deck building restriction. I like the, not only having red cards in your deck. That's kind of fun. I back when I used to play World of Warcraft TCG, some of my favorite heroes or the moments in the game I remember was when I think the 4th set came out and they released, or 4th or 5th set or something, and they released all of these heroes that had weird alternate deck building conditions.
Hmm.
And they came with all of these weird powers. Like, as an example, in World of Warcraft TCG, imagine magic, but you could attack creatures as well.
Yeah.
And you could attack face and all that kind of thing. But there was one hero who, instead of starting on what you would normally start, which was about 28 to 30 life, they only started on 8, but they couldn't be attacked. They were elusive, so you had to find other ways to deal damage to them. And they had all of these other weird deck building restrictions. Those were really fun and really cool. So only having red cards in your deck condition, yeah, that's fine. I don't think it's anywhere near as elegant as the other Draconics, where most of the Draconic cards are only red anyway.
Hmm.
But you could still play non-red other stuff.
Yep.
And yeah, I hate the tutor for Command and Conquer thing. I hate it. Hate it, hate it, hate it, hate it.
Tutoring for the most expensive card in the game, expensive
Yep.
main deck card in the game, right?
Yep. It's
I,
like, yeah, I don't have a balance problem with it or anything like that. Like, yeah, Command and Conquer is a good card. Very, very good. But it's just, it could literally say search your deck for any card, like insert whatever there. And I would have the same problem with it. It's not specifically about it being Command and Conquer.
you have the same problem with Phi.
Ooh. See, that's
Mm.
a good point. But it feels more like Phoenix Feather is Phoenix Flame is Phi's card.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So in that case, not really. Much in the same way that Dawnblade and such feel like, Dorinthia's cards. But I see your point. In that particular case, it's just because Phoenix Flame does it feels more like Phoenix Flame is the extension of Phi's card
Yeah.
than a
It also
separate card entirely.
it also does help that there are multiple other cards that reference Phoenix Flame in the set.
Yes, yeah, that I think does help it a lot as well. So Phoenix Flame is kind of a central point around a lot of cards that are themed around it, as opposed to randomly like, oh look, Command and Conquer.
Yeah. Maybe it's Draconic design space where Draconic cards part of the design space of Draconic is they can refer to other specific cards.
Maybe.
It's channeling that
It's
Yu-Gi-Oh
generous.
energy.
But yeah.
So my thoughts on Emperor, I liked him I actually didn't like him at first. I thought the type line having smaller font than normal type lines was a big mark against it. I was like, nobody's gonna read that. Nobody can read this from the current like website size, like how many types he has. Um, I wrote him off as a meme hero until I saw a couple of videos with all the lines of play that you could do with Emperor and Flamescale Furnace. And then I was like, okay, maybe he's a little bit more fun than a meme hero. So I feel like I'm a little bit higher on him now, but I still don't like him. I think the Command and Conquer thing, especially since he's Blitz only, you only ever use it once or twice, right? Sometimes you don't even use it at all because you just draw your Command and Conquers, and that's the biggest issue I have. At least with like Phoenix Flames, you pitch your Command and Conquers, and then or you can pitch your Phoenix Flames. You can get them back in the deck. You can get them back in your hand through other means. Whereas this, it's just like, oh, once per game action, get a Command and Conquer.
I didn't even touch on the fact that he's a warrior and wizard, by the way.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
I mean, I actually have I have less problem with warrior wizard hybrid than I do with like
Royal Draconic.
with well, Royal Draconic. I mean, I have more problem with talents generally than I do with classes. Because at least classes were established at the start of the game, right? So I can accept that, sometimes you might have hybrids. And again, like, if there was a class that just came and said, you can use any attacks from any class that have 3 damage or lower, fine, right? I have no real issue. I suppose I have a slight issue here because there's no inherent restriction. So if his abilities were a little better, the fact that he has access to 2 card pools rather than 1 does rub me the wrong way in the same way that talents do. But yeah, I don't have as immediately an aversive reaction to it. But I suppose I would have an aversive reaction to it if there are warrior wizard cards. But in the future, if they start printing multi-class cards, then I will have the same problem with this that I do with talents.
And so my opinion, moving on to the dusts, I like them, not because I think they're very strong mechanically. I think mechanically they're just like whatever. Mostly because it's referring to a single card. But I do like the flavor for it. And Fab doesn't have enough landscape art, and I like the fact that this has landscape art. That's pretty much
great.
that's pretty much my only reason for liking it. Right? It's just like
dust. Yeah, dust from the Golden Plains is awesome, and the fact that you can see the reference to the other art because there's a warrior card that mentions the Golden Plains as well, right? Because I recognize that the building as well. So I appreciate on a thematic level the world building, and on an art level, Golden Plains is far and away the best. And then I'd probably say Red Desert, but I think that's just an affinity I have for like barren-ish things.
As being Australian, of course.
That's right. Exactly. It just reminds me of the homeland,
Yeah. it does look good. I would also rank them in the same way.
Yeah, cool. There you go. Objectively, Australia is second.
Yeah. Oliver, any thoughts?
I hate Emperor.
Okay.
Because I wanted them to do multi-classing before talents were introduced, and then they introduce multi-classing with multi-talents, and it just seems really messy, as Kenny was saying.
He's dead though, so it's okay.
Yeah, no. Good thing. And in the lore, they also said he's the only mortal being that can do multi-classing, so hopefully we won't see it ever again.
Yeah, or anytime soon, at least for the next 10 or so years.
Yep.
Oh,
and then
that makes me like it even less.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yep. And then for the dust, I actually really hate them because it takes a card in your deck and it only works with very specific things. So
I mean, you can just play them as an ash, right? It's just a free ash.
Yeah, but they don't have go again. They don't do anything. They're just ash. I don't know. I just really hate them. Like if I want to.
You mean they're just ass? Oh.
True. But yeah, I think they're absolute trash, honestly. Maybe I'm wrong. I also just it's kind of weird just playing Ash. Like the regular Ash is just a token, but these are action Ash, so that's just kind of weird to me.
Yeah, you gotta separate them in a separate little pile. Your special dust versus your regular dust.
Yeah, and then these don't come in cold foil, so they can't be part of the deck.
It's trash. That's the main reason.
Yeah.
Cold foil dust from the Golden Plains would be absolutely stunning, though. I would totally get one of those. Anyway, okay, brute stuff. That should be fun. Any thoughts on brute in general, Kenny?
Look, I've always had a soft spot for brute. I like that these brute cards feel like brute cards, which is great. I like the continued emphasis on the 6 strength matters thing. So that's cool. I think rock is really fun. Like great design, really, really interesting, very, very different weapon to what's already been established. So that's pretty cool. So as a little, here's a fun thing. I'm pretty sure this is the case, but does anyone realize that Savage Beatdown is actually a callback to another game?
Which game?
So it's a callback to Versus System. I'm sure of it.
Oh yeah.
So for reference, James White used to play Versus System at a professional level. So it was like a really big game for him. It was like a game with superheroes like Marvel, DC, all that kind of thing. And one of the most iconic cards from that game is Savage Beatdown, and it has a picture of the Hulk going ape shit, basically.
Oh, okay, I see. I see. I can.
And I'm fairly certain that is what that is a callback to. It used to give, and it also gave you +5 strength. I know this gives you +6. I'm pretty sure that's just to go with the theme of 6s on the card. But I suspect that's why that's the case. So again, that's kind of cute and cool. I'm going to touch on this more when I get to a certain other class. But what I really like in Brute is that you've got these cards like Reincarnate and Skullcrack, which reward you for doing the things you want to do anyway, but in a unique and different way. Like, Reincarnate, you don't want to play it as an attack, right? You want it in your hand as discard fodder to reward you for the things you're going to do. And same with Skullcrack. Like, yeah, you can play them, but it's not ideal, right?
Yeah, because it's very similar to the design of Massacre and Beast Within, right?
Yes, yeah, right? I think Brute's design, now that you mention it, Brute's design generally is maybe controversial, but I think it's reasonably stellar, right? In that they've got a clear identity, which is like attacks that are 6 or more. They've got cards that support that general theme, as in not simply more options that just discard cards that that give you more options for discarding 6 or more. Like, yeah, there are some of those, like Madcap Muscle and Madcap Charger. Those ones I think are fine, right? Like, I'm not as enthused by them.
Yeah, I mean they're commons. They're just filler commons, right? So
yeah, they're fine. They're fine, right? They feel very much like Grizzly Bear versus whatever other bears there are, right? Like they're just riffs on what's already been done, so that's okay. But Skullcrack, Reincarnate, Berserk, all of those things I think are pretty interesting.
Yeah. So my thoughts on this, I actually have a lot of good thoughts on Brute design. First off, Rock is in the same class of weapon as Hexagore. I mean that by saying that there are basically, I want to say, 3 types of weapons. There's weapons that are the main focus of your game plan, like Dawnblade or like Rosetta Thorn, that you want to be swinging or like using every turn. Ranger bows also happen to be in this category. There's weapons that occasionally supplement your game plan. So that's stuff like Waning Moon. You want to use it every turn, but it's just like extra damage that you can fit in. Along those lines, there's also like Romping Club and Nothos that just like offer alternative attack, like a baseline attack if you don't have anything else to do. And then there's weapons that pay off, that are like the payoffs that just sit around and give your deck a thing to build around without needing to draw it. So we've seen these in legendary equipment and some other equipment before, but Hexagore was the only payoff weapon in the game before this. And it's good to see that Rock is this new payoff weapon that you build your deck around it, you swing with it a couple times, and you get massive amounts of value, and you feel good about yourself.
Yeah, yeah. Like, I agree. I like your explanation around the payoff weapons, right? And I think that's exactly what Rock is. Rock is not the kind of thing you can just stick in your deck and it will be good. It's not like Harmonized Kadachi or whatever. I mean, so thematically, I think Rock is fun. The idea that you're just smacking someone with a rock is very enjoyable.
Yes.
But yeah, I can imagine the payoff when you actually do get to swing with it. It must feel so good.
Yeah, exactly. It's also just a lot of work to do it, right? You have to set it up with like energy potions, or you have to like use your tunic resource and like plan out your turn, so you have exactly 2 left over with Gogen. It's just a lot of stuff that you line up and you get the 7 damage attack, and you're like, okay, cool, sweet, we did it. Beaten Trackers. Beaten Trackers is a riff off of Hooves of the Shadow Beast. It's actually, and that's one of my favorite equipment. Not just because it's for Levia, but just because it feels like it's a really good, like, solid equipment. I like that Beaten Trackers exists because it's a reasonable. I want to say reasonable. It's like a not as bad of a downgrade in terms of like equipment as like from Scabskins as other classes have.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. I would even go as so far as to argue that perhaps in certain situations it's not even a downgrade.
Yeah. My playstyle would rather have Beaten Trackers than Scabskins.
Yeah. Like Scabskin, the thing is, Scabskin on average will give you more actions than it will take away, right? But there are some days where you're just going to roll a 1 and you're going to lose a game out of nowhere where you should have been winning, right? Beaten Trackers is the more consistent older brother or whatever, or younger brother to Scabskin. So I appreciate its design. It's not just simply like an inferior version of Scabskin. It is different, and for that I think it's good.
Yeah. And one last thing I want to touch on before we move on to Oliver's opinion, which I assume he doesn't have too much of an opinion on. So one of the issues they had before with Brute design was that Massacre was specified cost only, and the newer Brute cards had an effect that said draw a card and discard a card at random, which Massacre didn't trigger on. So decks that used to use Massacre, if they wanted to use the new cards, they couldn't use it with Massacre. It would basically just be a brick, and they would just be a
Mhm.
normal 6 attack that they discarded. They updated the wording for all the Everfest all the Dynasty cards to use the discard at random condition rather than the as a cost discard at random condition. So
Mhm.
it's backwards compatible with all other brute cards, and I do like that they quote unquote fixed that, which I assume we also get into when we talk about Ranger. So yeah, so good on whoever the brute designer was, or whoever designed most of the brute cards. I think they're all very good. I don't know how competitive Brute will be, but at the very least, I feel like none of these cards, all of these cards feel like they could be part of Brute's natural kit if they were released earlier too. I think that's a
Yeah.
good thing. Where it's like,
Yeah.
okay, cool. It's not like it's just more options.
Yes. It's a very consistent design, right, with Brute, which I think is good. Brute for me at the moment is like the gold standard of what the design for classes should be.
Yes. One thing I actually wanted to touch on was that I assumed they would, but I'm glad they didn't, which is add on-hit effects to Brute. There's still no on-hit effects to Brute, and I was very afraid that because they were seeing that other classes were getting on-hit effects, that they would make Brute have on-hit effects, but they resisted that, and I hope they continue to resist that in the future for base Brute cards. Because I feel like
Yeah.
the lack of on-hits gives Brute a more unique identity or slash weakness.
Yeah, like I think the fact that it's Brute's identity is they hit hard. That is their on-hit effect, is they deal damage, right? That I think, as you said, makes them more special than say Guardian or Ranger. Like I mean, as an example, Guardian or Ranger both have on-hit effects, and they kind of seem quite similar. It's just that Guardians has a condition, if you know what I mean. Like, so they feel less special than Brute, which just smacks and does damage. And that it feels very thematic and on point. So again, really happy with the overall design on Brute.
Yep, very good, very good. Any thoughts, Oliver?
So for starters, I found it really funny that they took some of Levia's cards and just transferred it into regular Brute. So like,
It's almost
Shoes,
like talents shouldn't be a thing.
yeah, they have Shoes. They got Endless Maw, and now kind of have a Dread
A
Screamer.
Dread Screamer?
Yeah, with the Madcap Charger.
Uh, they already had that in the form of what's
Swing
called
Fist,
Wild
Think
Ride.
Later. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or yeah, I don't know. But Swing Fist, Think Later didn't care about 6 power. But I
No.
think one downside of what we see in Brood right now is I don't see how they can go forward with this like continued class design, because for their whole set, if you look at every other class, they have a preview of what's coming up. So like Guardian has more shield stuff, Ninja has more Crashing Tiger stuff, even like Illusionist has more Spectral Shield focused stuff. But I don't see where Brute can go forward other than just like discarding 6 power attack. Like
I
that
get what you're
seems,
saying.
yeah, that seems to be like their only thing, their only signature mechanic.
I think Brute's signature mechanic and what they probably could have honed in a little bit more, I appreciate what you're saying, is Brute's mechanic is like high rolling. You know what I mean? Like it's they deal damage and they have more randomness. Now the cards from hand one you can manage a little bit more. You can take some of the randomness out of it. But way back in Crew they had Kaio, right? Who was the die rolling one, and die rolling was a bit more of a theme in Crew than it was in the other sets. So I feel like if they wanted to go into
Everfest too.
Oh, Everfest as well. Yeah, sure. But so if die rolling, Brute's other identity, I guess, could have been die rolling, which I know is your favorite, Oliver.
Oh yeah.
You know, I think that's a direction they could go. It just doesn't blend itself. It doesn't mesh as well with the discard from hand ones. Like it's a completely separate build, which is fine. But maybe they should go more into that if they were gearing up for Kaio to be like another adult Brute hero.
We're due for another Brute, so I'll reserve judgment until we see the new Brute. So I can see that they might lean into, because like Levia played off of the end result of the discard, which is getting stuff in graveyard. So I can see a new Brute only care about 6 attack power cards to be like a suited Guardian. I don't know what else this can point to. Maybe Reincarnate can point to something that's more like a fatigue style Brute. I don't know. But yeah, I do agree that in terms of archetypes, Brute is relatively low. But I feel like most of the classes that got alternative archetypes in this set are classes that already had a quote unquote complete and competitive archetype to use already.
What about Ranger? Anyways, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah,
Yeah, I understand that.
Let's get there. Let's get there.
Yeah.
The anticipation.
Guardian. Honestly, not much to talk about here. It's offhand matters, and you got two new offhands. You got Yoji, who is honestly feels kind of weird. I really hoped that we would have gotten a Draconic Warrior with Yoji's art, but I guess we didn't.
Draconic Guardian.
No, I wanted Yoji to be the Draconic Warrior.
Oh, okay, I see.
So we have it. So we could have a Dynasty Warrior.
True. I get it. I get it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can I just say quickly? I actually really dislike Yoji and the Emperor's art. Like, really not a fan of it. I don't know why. Like, I find it extremely busy, and I can't. Like, it takes me a while to actually pinpoint what's happening in it.
Yep.
Like, when I look at Yoji, it takes me more than like a glance to actually work out. Oh, the most central part of the card is actually like a side view of his stomach.
Yep.
Like,
Yeah, I think it just doesn't translate well to card art form. Yeah, it definitely feels muddled, especially the cold foil.
I don't know. Overall, I mean, my thoughts on Guardian, I always find Guardian to be probably the most boring. Like, they block well and they hit big. Like, cool. And
Yep.
so I like that, yeah, they got more shields and stuff, so they're trying to bring, like, the shield bashing archetype. And in fairness, like, I like shield bashing in most things. I always find it kind of funny.
Mhm.
So maybe that will be a more interesting archetype.
Okay,
But-
so here's how they make Guardian interesting for me. Okay, one,
Mhm.
have a shield that's a door, just like a door that somebody broke off of its hinge. And 2,
Mhm.
allow you to dual wield it, so I can do it like in Dark Souls 3, and I will play that all day. Dual wielding door shields. Let's go. That being said, I would say like 4 or 5 designs in the set are just like make your shield block better,
Yeah.
which I find really it's so redundant, but at the same time I can't like fault them for having it because it's just like we got so many good attacks in previous sets for Guardian that we're due for the other side of Guardian, which is the defensive Guardian. And most of these cards, other than Buckle, are for a very, very defensive Guardian. I don't like that of these new cards, you're only ever going to want like 1 or 2 of these cards in your deck because they're all so redundant and they all occupy the same general space.
What, you mean you won't want Red Rift Stand to give you shield +6 and Red Shield Wall to give it +11?
It just feels. Oh, no. The shield wall actually it doesn't give you a shield +11. It blocks for 11.
Oh,
It's-
sorry. Yeah.
Which is absolutely
that-
insane.
Actually, it's even weirder. Like you just need a shield around, right? And it
Yeah.
itself doesn't block.
Yep. So, really weird, just really weird set of cards. Blessing of Patience. I don't know. I guess they made a healing Sigil of Solace that blocks. That's kind of cool. Never Yield is interesting, but I don't see myself playing it. Just a bunch of weird cards. I have no real opinion on them, basically.
Weird.
Yeah. Shield Bash is nice because it's the first. It's the second Steelblade Shunt effect that we have seen outside of Steelblade Shunt. Do you remember what the
Yes.
first one was?
Oh god. I if I had to think, I could really pinpoint what it is. Is it in a class that we're going to talk about soon?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I know the one.
You know, Oliver?
The traps, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah. So I find that interesting that they're trying to expand more untyped, unpreventable damage, essentially. Or
Oh,
not really.
actually,
Mhm.
no, it's not. It's the fourth one. There is an earlier one. There's also a brute one.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
Reckless
Reckless
Swing. That's
Swing.
right.
Reckless Swing. Yeah.
Right.
There.
Original. Okay. There's four classes that have.
There you go. I remember things.
Yeah. Actually, there's 5 now because if we include Sigil of Suffering for Runeblade.
Is that from this set?
No, it's from
Tales of Aria.
Tales of Aria, I think. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Actually, no. I think I do remember it.
Yeah. It's if you've dealt arcane damage, it gets +1 defense.
Yep.
And deals 1
Yeah,
arcane
yeah.
on block.
Yeah.
But yeah, so interesting. I really don't like how Seasoned Savior doesn't work with the armor card from the previous set, which was Nerves of Steel. Seasoned Savior is a Guardian offhand, and Nerves of Steel only removes counters from Guardian chests, which I find really odd if you're gonna have them so close together.
Yeah.
So it feels like a missed opportunity for forwards compatibility. But yeah, we'll see. I don't think this is gonna see any play anytime soon. I think that at some point when PvE comes out in the next 4 years or 5 years or whatever is coming out, we will see some guys go like, "Oh, I just want to block all day and just play mono defense reaction Guardian." But yeah, that's about all I have. Okay, so Ninja.
Hey, what do you know? I have nice things to say.
Yeah. Okay.
I
So
think
here's my non-nice thing to say. There's no hidden
okay,
dragon.
okay,
There's no,
I agree. That is
yeah.
also my non-nice thing to
Missed
say.
opportunity. They're gonna publish it later and be like, "Oh, we were playing it. We were foreshadowing it all along." But no, they should have been in the same set. You can't
Absolutely.
have Crouching Tiger be a archetype and then just not publish Hidden Dragon.
Yes, I agree. How dare they?
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, no, I do agree with that. I think they definitely probably should have put the Hidden Dragon in this. But you know, overall, I think the Crouching Tiger archetype is at least it's different and kind of cool. Like, I don't know how good it is. I haven't played it, but you know, Tiger Swipe is pretty satisfying. I think you've got some payoff cards, right? Like from
Yep.
what I remember, like Roar of the Tiger,
Yep.
etc., where you know you can set it up and do some cool stuff.
Hmm.
So you know, I'm sure. I mean, there's also no Stubbies is banned, isn't it?
Yep.
Okay, so no Stubby Hammers. Yeah, I'm sure you've got other options of things that you can play as well and make them good.
Yeah. It feels like an archetype that really wanted to use Art of War and Stubby Hammers, and does use Art of War, um, to the point where you have it's a deck that can have like really big combo turns, but only if it like sets up and if it just like expends everything it has properly.
Hmm.
I don't like that it plays so similarly. At least on first read, it plays really similarly to like existing ninja archetypes, especially Fi,
Yeah,
where you're just
I agree with that.
spamming attacks. I would have liked to see more nuance there. I don't mind anything. I think Blazing Yoroi is an interesting choice, at least for a Marvel, because I feel like you're only going to use it in one situation, which is the Ninja Mirror match, and
Hmm.
every other situation you don't get to show off the Marvel. Um, so yeah, I would rather have had the Marvel be something else. But yeah, I don't think there's anything that's particularly offensive in the ninja section.
That's you know the bar, not offensive.
Yeah. Now that we've gone through a couple classes, I do want to mention that there's a mega cycle of blessing cards, which are all auras, one for every class at rare, that pop at the beginning of your turn and then do a class relevant effect. Of these blessings so far, the most awkward one, I think, is Blessing of Tea because one, it's a really awkward name, and I don't like it for some reason. It feels very forced, like they had to make a card in this cycle. But I guess it works. I don't know. I'm just not a big fan of Blessing of Tea.
Yeah. No, I get what you're saying. In the sense that like all of the other ones do something that feels inherent to the class,
Yeah,
whereas Blessing of She is specific to this archetype of the class, I
yeah,
suppose.
yeah. You can play it by itself to just be like, oh, you have free zero cost, three go
Free
again attack
attack
cards.
card.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it feels a little on the mess side. This is especially because Katsu is the worst performing hero in the game right now. How the mighty have fallen.
Is it even worse than Azalea?
Azalea got a couple of top eights, and I think she won a couple Rotonats.
Wow,
Katsu
I'm gonna
didn't.
feel real rich when I start complaining about Ranger soon.
Yeah, Katsu didn't. So yeah, pretty sad for old Katsu here. The
Yeah,
once
the
menace of the
mighty.
metagame.
That's right. The mighty have fallen. I mean,
Uh,
is part of that also just because Fi is so high, is relatively high performing?
there's an issue with aggro decks in this in the game where if you have one good aggro deck, most of the other aggro decks are just inferior choices.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. So like, it's just the thing where like he's just outclassed, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's mostly in terms of damage. I know, obviously, there are individual Kazu players who can do relatively well, but for the most part, it's like once you know how to play against him at the high level, he's very predictable and doesn't have
Mhm.
enough. He has tricks, but he doesn't have enough payoff for those tricks for it to really matter.
Yeah. We're to clarify, we're always talking about in aggregate, right? Like we're not talking
Yeah,
about we're not saying, oh no, like this class can never top eight or anything like that.
yeah.
Like there might be individual instances or circumstances where something like that can happen,
Hmm.
but it's just more on average when you compare them to you know the other classes or the other heroes that are trying to achieve the same thing. They have less success on aggregate.
Exactly. What do you think about the Crouching Tiger Cofoil? And actually, just the art for Crouching Tiger. I think it's really excellent.
Yeah, I think it's cool. I think it's great. I'm just trying to like zoom in. It's just it is made up script from what I can see.
Yeah,
It's not
100%
actually
made up.
yeah,
It looks
which
like
is
some
good.
Yes, it looks like some combination of Korean and Japanese.
Yeah, it looks slightly hybridized. I mean, like technically speaking, I would say that there's like one character there, which I would argue is actually a real character.
Yeah, that's
Um,
because it's just like it's a simple character.
it's a very simple character. You know the one I'm talking about.
Exactly. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, but overall, they've captured the aesthetic without actually using a real language. So that's credit to the artist.
Yeah. I wonder if they slightly regret not naming Ninja Monk because most of the characters depicted on these cards are monks.
I agree. I think that Ninja's playstyle as well ultimately is very much more monk-like,
Yeah.
right? Like it's the flurry of blows. Like when you think ninja, you're thinking like sneaky assassin, like single hit, right? Not
Like poisons and
you know,
stuff, right? Yeah.
yeah, not wombo combo. So it's a bit, you are right. It's a bit weird that ninja is effectively monk.
Yep. Okay. Any other thoughts on Ninja?
So my thinking was I do like where they're going with this, mostly because if you think about like any future ninjas, they probably won't have Katsu's tutor effect. So having combo cards based around a singular card that you can consistently get would make it a lot easier for future ninjas to actually be competitive. So
Yeah, like
Mhm.
like Phoenix
Mhm.
Flame, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
I know why they didn't do combo for Phoenix Flame. Because the variety of effects that play off of Phoenix Flame are very different, but it feels like that Phoenix Flame is a evolution of the combo, and
Mhm.
then this is a divergent evolution, like a parallel evolution. It's like
Mhm.
alligators and crocodiles. Those
Mhm.
are parallel evolution, right?
I'm not a biologist.
Okay. Warrior cards. We'll start off with Spirit of Irina. Irina? The Bolton
Aerina?
card. The Bolton
Yeah.
card, it's a legendary that came out of nowhere. It's the type of design that you mentioned before, which is it
Oh
combos with
boy.
a specific card
Oh
and does
boy.
nothing else. This one actually does
Yep.
nothing else other than the
Yep.
combo of a specific card.
Yep. Said, oh boy, do I love these things. I will say, in fairness, I mind this one slightly less because at least the card that it combos off is specifically for Bolton. Kind of in the same vein as Phoenix Flame, right?
Yep.
So at least it's a Bolton card that works well with a Bolton card. So
Yeah.
it has more leeway from me.
Mhm.
Even so, oh god. Yeah, still not a fan of the design overall.
I'm not a big fan of it. I like that it exists, but I think it's probably the worst design card in this set. I think that one of the issues that I had with Bolton wasn't the charge mechanic. I actually think the charge mechanic is fine for me. I think the main issue is that the hero over relies on Luminous Ascension, and this just drives in that point instead of like expanding his toolkit.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not opposed to that. I do agree that I wish that, Bolton had just more options rather than going, hey, you know how Luminous Ascension is a really good thing? Let's
Like
do
even better
more.
now. Yeah.
Yeah, it's better. Sometimes. Like, sometimes when you draw this one of in your deck, it'll be better.
To be fair, I don't think they could have put this card anywhere else. But they could also have put it in the trash, and I don't think people would have complained too much.
uh,
Okay, so moving on from this card, we have 3 warrior weapons, technically 4 warrior weapons, which is very, very exciting. I know some people were hoping for warrior other equipment, but I think it's interesting that warrior gets so many new weapons to play around with. And the first one revealed was Merciless Battle Axe, which is probably the worst one, but I do think it's interesting that we have a axe that doesn't work well with the existing axe support.
is that interesting?
I don't know if it's interesting. People were like excited for the new axe, and they're reading this, and then just like, doesn't Spillblood just give this the same thing, but better?
Yep. It's I mean, I like that they printed an axe. I like that it's two-handed and it's a bit different, but I
Yeah.
agree in that it does feel weird that you spill blood and it gives you an effect that's better than this, as opposed to just, giving something that complements it.
Yep.
Whatever. It's bizarre.
So my initial thought was that this axe would be released with a new warrior hero that would decrease the cost of attacks. But apparently, you're just supposed to use this with a bunch of blues, and you're supposed to hope for the best here. Because we have like Felling Swing, we have like Cleave, we have a bunch of cards that just like give the axe 4+ power, and you're just supposed to like swing with like massive hits with it.
Mm-hmm. It's
I-
very brute.
It's very brute. It's very interesting too. It's like it's an aggressive card, but the payoff for the aggression is like a 7 damage attack where you hold 3 cards, and you're like, okay, cool, that's okay, I guess. I don't know. It feels like a weird archetype. I'm sure it'll get fleshed out later. But this one is definitely a more curious option for the Marvel rather than the other majestic weapon, which feels like more Marvel-like, which is Jubilee's Spellbane.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, Jabil's okay. Like it's clearly like a meta call, right? If you're taking more arcane damage, you use it, and then it's just like a mix of an aggressive and a defensive card. I don't have a huge problem with it. I'm not super excited by it, but it's not a bad card.
Yeah.
Cool art.
Yeah, I actually really like the Jubilee's art. I'm surprised it doesn't come in cold foil, which means that there's a cold foil plan for it somewhere down the line. I wonder if it's like a preview of like a card for next set. Who knows? Just like how Icelander was.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. And then we have the daggers, which are fine, I guess. It's the first warrior daggers. They're meant to be paired with not necessarily each other, which I think is interesting because you can give like your Centauri Saber or your Hatchet of Body go again, and you can just use this to supplement. Otherwise, I feel like most of the warrior cards are relatively straightforward this set.
Yeah, and nothing like major that I can see. Like it's weapon gets plus attack. Cool.
Yeah,
That's pretty much the summary of every card.
Pretty much. I find it somewhat interesting that a lot of the commons, specifically like Precision Press and Visit the Imperial Forge, are cards that you're okay with not running the blue of because the red effect bonus is so minor that it's basically negligible.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, the archetype that you're supposed to use lots of blues with only keys off of is an axe instead of a sword or dagger. So this is both of these designs are especially weird to me. Precision Press and Visit the Imperial Forge, where you want to run the blue, and the card that rewards you for running blues is not the same type of card that you want that it keys off of.
Yeah, it's a weird design choice.
Yep. And okay, one last card mentioned, which is Iron Song Pride. This is actually art that I don't really like. I know people like it, but I don't like it. It looks kind of plasticine to me, like fake.
I think people like it because people like Dorinthia.
That's true. That's true.
Right.
She's not even using Dawnblade in this art, though.
Oh, she's not.
She's using some random broadsword. Anyway, it's an interesting effect. It's basically downside-less when it comes to Dawnblade, and yeah, some warriors are using it. It's a nice extra trick in your arsenal. Not much to say, really. It's just most of these warrior cards are fine.
Yeah. Oh, Mechanologist is next.
Yeah, this is actually a good one because there's a lot to dig into here. Mostly because Mechanologist was in this weird spot where people really wanted it to be good, and then despite not receiving too many new cards, it became somewhat good late in the Uprising format, and now people are mostly okay with Mechanologist. So depending on when this feels like it was designed before people discovered Mechanologist was good again. So a lot of these cards feel like really good upgrades to the boost archetype, but they also support this weird hyperdriver mechanoid archetype that is really fun, and I am really glad it exists, and people obviously really like this effect.
Yeah, I agree. So I would say I'm not instantly a fan again of cards that mention specific other cards. Like I don't love that it has to be hyperdriver or whatever. I wish there was some way, like if it was just something that like required steam counters or whatever, like just something a little more generic to give you a little bit more room. I get it. Like thematically it probably needs the hyperdrivers or whatever, so like I'm willing to give it a pass. But again, just to be consistent, still not my favorite thing. But oh boy, Construct Nitro Mechanoid, what a fun card.
Yeah.
Like super exciting. Fantastic art too. Like how can you not play with that card? It just screams.
It looks like she's having fun, right? Like
yeah.
She's having fun. You're having fun. You have your Nitro Mechanoid. Everybody's having fun except your opponent, who probably has a shred available for you block with it.
Yeah, as a little fun history thing. So when Arcane Rising came out, I was like pretty much everyone really attracted to Dash and Mechanologist generally, right? Because it's such bright, vibrant, fun art. She looks like she's having a great time. It just looked like an overall fun thing. The only reason I didn't end up playing Mechanologist was because everyone else seemed to want to. So I decided to pick Ranger, just to be different and to pick something that not everyone was. But like whenever I look at Mechanologist cards, I'm like, no, I made the wrong choice. Especially when I look at all the Ranger cards.
Yeah. Other interesting things to mention, like Phoenix Flame, there's a bunch of cards that mention hyperdrivers, so the Mechanoid requiring hyperdrivers doesn't feel as bad. It also doesn't feel as bad because you can run 9 of hyperdrivers, so you have more of your deck dedicated to this engine card that you want to get out. The non-hyperdriver cards, which are Urgent Delivery, Scramble Pulse, Pulse Wave Harpoon, these 3 boost cards, these seem really good. I guess they're below rate, but I feel like the effects of these are really good, and they're really pushing how strong Mechanologist cards can be. It feels like a lot of Arcane Rising was not at the power level they wanted it to be, and so every subsequent set has not necessarily power creeped, but like utility creeped.
Tuned it to be where it was supposed to be.
Yeah, like obviously Ranger's been getting relatively good cards. Like honestly, like a lot of the Ranger cards in the last few sets are like really good. And if you ignore aim counters as a optional mechanic, a lot of these cards are really good and make you want to play aim counters. Same thing with Runeblade, who has famously gotten really strong cards, and Wizard, who has a lot of strict upgrades in this set. It feels like that they definitely feel like Arcane Rising was not at the power level they wanted it to be, and they're remedying that. And part of that is just like adding these sweet cards that people want to play.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else you want to mention? Honeybee Blaster is a nice design. What do you think about that?
Yeah, it's interesting, right?
Mm.
I think it's cool. Again, it's one of those payoff weapons, right? Which are fun. Like you need
this one's a lot easier too because it's just something that you want to do and it just happens naturally. And
yeah,
if you just
yeah.
remember the triggers, you're like, okay, cool, I can shoot this now.
Right. It's the kind of thing though where like you won't really be able to do it. I mean, if you boost say 3 times in a turn or something like that, then yeah, you could theoretically do it like 2 turns in a row or whatever. But I could see it being more challenging overall. But it's cool. Like I think it's good. It's a good card.
Mm-hmm. A lot of people are saying it's not better than existing cards, which I think is a good thing, because it reads like a lot better.
Yeah, like not every new card that comes out needs to be better than old ones, right? They just need to be different or situationally better, right? And Hanabi Blaster, I think, is good. Like I think it's great. I will say the one thing I don't love in this set, it's a minor thing, but it's the material on Galvanic Bender. Like
it's useless unless you play an Nitro Mechanoid.
Yeah, it's so specific, right? Like I understand that obviously it's hinting at the fact that there will be other constructs later on, or other things that use it as a material, which I don't mind. But I kind of wish there was like 1 or 2 cards that used it rather than just the one in this set. But it's minor.
You mentioned that, but now I'm thinking about all these other like Iron Man type inventions that you can like equip, like a construct that just goes on over your arm, just like powers up your arm. That'd be pretty sweet. Still think that would be a nice, interesting direction for mech.
Yeah, like Mechanologist, I think is in a reasonably good spot as far as design stuff goes. I don't love permanence. I often do talk about that as well. Like so, Mechanologist in a sense was one of the first classes that did that, and I didn't love that. But given that it's now a more established thing in the game, I'm more okay with it. I still don't love it, but it seems to be a direction that the game has taken. So Mechanologist is no longer the victim of my ire.
Yeah, most of these are actually relatively tame. Or most of the permanents are pretty tame. Plasma Lane just like boosts other items, and
yes, I agree. I think the ones in this set are relatively tame.
Yeah,
I think the main thing, I just still have nightmares thinking about Fatigue Dash from Arcane Rising. And like shoot with gun, shoot with gun, shoot with gun, block, shoot with gun, shoot with gun, shoot with gun, block. Like that was pretty tedious.
Yeah, it was. The other issue, this is another issue that dates back to Crucible, is that they chose gun as a type instead of rifle. So once again, pistols not being guns is a very non-flavorable thing. So like cards that say gun don't actually affect pistols, and that's very, very annoying for a lot of players.
It is bizarre.
Cool. Any thoughts on that, Oliver?
Contrary to what Kenny was saying about how materials seems very specific, I actually do like it because it is hinting at what can possibly happen. I feel like if they do go that route, though, it might just be a better Dromai, which I find hilarious. Because like,
I don't know if it'll be better. You can make it very different, right?
Yeah.
You can make it like more like upgrades rather than just like summons.
Yeah, like BIOS update should be very synergistic with that item thing, or like you just have items with material underneath it, and then instead of having like very specific stuff, like what Kenny doesn't like. Maybe just like turn specific items into certain things. I
Yeah,
don't know
because
what
like
that'd be.
the text on Nitro Mechanoid doesn't actually like make a construct a mechanical thing. It's not like its own type or anything. It's just like a permanent that just like goes over other permanents. And so obviously you can do that with attacks. You can do that with other items too that can mesh very well and mesh very cleanly with other stuff. So I have high hopes for the future of Mechanologist.
And from like a collector standpoint, I do like how they're making every single item cold foil, which is
Mm.
nice.
Are they though?
Yeah, every
Oh yeah, they
hyperdriver
are.
got
Yeah.
cold foil. Every powder keg, plasma mainline got cold
Okay.
foil.
Okay.
So
Yeah. Okay.
have
Cool.
fun
I
collecting
didn't
that,
realize
Adrian.
that. Yeah. Yeah. I will. I mean, like, it's not necessary, but yeah, it'll be fun. Cool. So we'll skip over assassin because we already mentioned assassin. Okay. Now is everybody's favorite class? Let's talk about ranger. I'll leave it to you guys.
Okay. So, I mean, this has been, hinted at throughout the episode. But, I think this may be the set where I just never play Ranger again now. I feel like whenever I look at a new set for Ranger cards, I'm always somewhat hopeful that there'll be something interesting or something new or different to, make it better or make it at least rewarded for doing the things that it's trying to do. And if anything, all of the evidence in this set just really points to it being more of the same over and over again. So to clarify what I mean, I'll give you an example of I think a card. I think I made like a random card design, which we talked about, which I might mention in a moment. But everything in this set is a side grade, right? Like there's no real cards or anything in this set that you use in addition to complement existing strategies or anything like that. In fact, pretty much the entire set is all based around aim counters,
Well,
right?
except Heatseeker.
Except Heatseeker, which I also think, by the way, is pretty garbage. Like, it's just it's draw a card but not, right?
Mhm.
Like it's Heatseeker is not great. Like it's not the worst thing ever, but it's not excellent. Sandscale Greatbow and the entire Ranger archetype in this set is basically just, from what I understand, a fix on the fact that for some reason the trigger from Remorseless was really hard to remember, based on what I read from some interviews. Like, this whole aim counter thing exists because of that, right?
I'll clarify for that really quick. The thing
Yeah.
he didn't mention was that he didn't like that there's cards that had effects when they're put in the arsenal face up, and then you can do a bunch of other stuff and then attack with the arsenal, and like you might forget that's relevant. So
Yeah.
Encounters is aimed at quote unquote solving that. Go on though.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. And there is the extra utility in the sense that aim counters technically last from round to round, so you can have an arrow with an aim counter on it that lasts until the next round, which you couldn't do with something like Remorseless. But man, like every card in this set just feels like okay, it's just like a variant on old arrows with like an extra condition or something like that. Like now they all need aim counters, right? So every single card, if I want to play Ranger cards from this set, I need to play Sandscale Greatbow. That's pretty much what happens, right?
Mhm.
Like there's no other natural way to get aim counters on things from what I remember. So
There are two cards that give encounters, but they're all like main deck cards, which is Point the Tip, and which is Blessing of Focus.
sure.
So
So
yeah.
so basically just Sandscale Greatbow.
Yep.
But I know I'm like proper beating around the bush. So no, I'm not beating around the bush. I'm just like ignoring all that stuff. But it's basically Sandscale Greatbow. If you want to play those things with any consistency, you need Sandscale Greatbow. And as such, all the cards in this set just feel like side grades. Nothing feels interesting. Like when we talked about Brute, we talked about reincarnation and skullcrack and all of that. How these are effects that reward you for doing things that the Brute is already doing. So in this set, you don't have anything like that for Ranger. You just have alternatives to things that already exist, right? Like just, +3 with an extra condition, but if it hits, you get to do this extra thing. I think that's the thing, is that all of the cards in this set seem to imply that Ranger's problem is that they don't do enough when they hit people, right? They do enough, right? The problem the problem is not with on-hit effects or anything like that. The problem is with so many other things, right? The problem is just
Getting
the
wrecked by
support is
everything.
not. The getting wrecked by everything is a side thing. The one thing I will say is actually no, I'll take it back. Sorry, I thought long shot. I was looking at long shot for a second. And long shot kind of for some reason looks like it's an an action, not an attack action. And I was gonna say, oh wow, they actually buffed him up to 3 defense, but nope. Point the Tip is 2 defense. So problem number 1 is Ranger can't block very well. Fine, like not every class has to block excellently, but like Ranger really doesn't block well. and that feels more like a bug than a feature.
It's actually gotten to the point where I've seen people run Deadeye just because it's a yellow card that blocks 3 and it's a pump.
Yeah, Oliver can stand testament to this. When I play Ranger, Oliver, do I block?
Nope.
No, I just eat everything to the face because Ranger is so shit at blocking and so shit at defending that like it's just not. It feels like it's just not worth it, right? And as I said, looking at all of the cards in this set, it's basically saying, do you want to play Sandscape Greatbow or not? If so, do it, and then you have some new toys to play with, which pretty much fundamentally do the same thing that other cards did. Or you can just have no toys for this set. So the example, just to kind of give an example of a card I kind of came up with for a while, I just said, what if, Ranger had a one-handed crossbow that had no effects apart from load and arrow, and then they had like a one-handed sword that just said, if you shot an arrow this turn, go again, or something. Or if you have an arrow in your arsenal, attack for 1, go again. At least it's something different, right? Some unique thing that's like not just a side grade. It is actually a different play style that's not just here is more of the same with different effects. Or more effects that give you rewards for having them face up in the arsenal. Like, for God's sake, Back Alley Breakline is like the most interesting Ranger card ever released, right?
It's true. It's true.
And it's not even a Ranger card. But anyway, that's my rant. I feel like this set just really, as I said, reinforced to me that Ranger design is the least interesting design in the game. Beyond the base stuff, based on the core stuff for the faction is so good and so interesting. And I just feel like every single time I see a new set, they really fail to deliver on it. So anyway, that's my welcome to my TED Talk. Thanks for coming.
Oliver?
I feel like they need to stop making pumps, honestly. I feel like instead of making pumps to make it flavorful, you should just do like modal actions onto a bow to make it seem like you're drawing the arrow further back, and so you can dump more resources into it. That just makes Ranger more efficient per card, I feel. If there's like modal effects, like, oh, you want to draw your bow back this much, or yeah, your bow back this much, it'll do extra damage or extra on hits or something. I just don't like pumps, honestly, because it's just not as card efficient as every other class, and that that just compiles into Ranger not being good at blocking because you need every single card to actually do something. So yeah, that's just I really don't like the aim counters because I feel like, as Kenny said, everything is just a side grade.
I have a couple of thoughts that both supplement and sort of challenge some of the stuff that you said. So I'll start with a couple of observations that I've had with Ranger and Ranger players. One, the most successful Azalea deck in the last few months, which was piloted by Levi Rausch, is a defensive Azalea deck that runs basically as many defense reactions as possible. And the reason why it's been most successful is because, according to him, Ranger's really bad when it has at using all their cards when they have a 4 to 5 card hand. So, and they're best when they have 2 or 3 card hands, when they can efficiently deal damage and like deliver damage along with a debilitating effect, while also like remaining defensive. So it's interesting that and it's one of the only heroes in the game that doesn't have a exponential increase in power with the number of cards in hand. Only the other heroes that do that are like Brute and Guardian, and Brute obviously hasn't been the greatest either. I think that's an interesting point in why Ranger hasn't been performing as well, is because it can't utilize those 4 to 5 card hands. As for why Ranger in this set sucks, every other class got either an alternate archetype or a supplement to their current archetype. Ranger got both and got neither. The archetype for aim counters is the exact same playstyle as Ranger did before, except now it requires aim counters. And therefore, it's a side grade to the existing kit, where you have to use a slightly worse bow, and as a result, you get a wider variety of arrows. So not only does it not like add anything to the class, it doesn't like give players another reason to like be interested in Ranger. It's just more Ranger stuff. So yeah, that's my thoughts on it. It feels like Ranger's always been playing catch up to an extent where it's like, oh, we want better Ranger cards. But I don't know. This feels entirely contrary to the design of Everfest and Crucible and Tales of Arya for Ranger, and I'm not sure it's a good direction unless they make a new Ranger next set that utilizes encounters in a very interesting and different way from existing Rangers.
It feels like whoever is designing Ranger is playing a different game to Flesh and Blood. That's my little hot take. Not that I'm short of hot takes.
Now, if they make a interesting encounter Ranger next set, most of my issues with this set, well, some of my issues with this set will be gone. But yeah, I agree. The Ranger design of this set is not particularly inspiring, even if the individual cards read somewhat exciting.
I don't know if aim counters become a thing in the next set. I don't know if I'll still be as in. I mean, I will still not be as enthused with the cards, but like it's just.
What if it's a different type of Ranger entirely? Like a Ranger that just like wants to remain defensive and like fire off a name counter card once per turn from Arsenal. And that's it.
I
Or
don't
like
know.
Mother Archetype. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what they could do, but yeah, we'll see.
I've been hurt so much.
One thing I want from Ranger is what can they do about no arrow hands? Because that just is sad when you are ahead and you just draw like no arrows. I think that's happened to Yuki at Pro Tour. That's happened to me a few times and at like very critical points.
You just brick and it's like, well, all right.
Yeah.
I guess I'll just do nothing.
It's something that happens too with other classes, especially like with Runeblade and stuff, right? Where you just like you kind of break. The thing with Runeblade is that they've always been able to like bank resources for next turn, and so giving Ranger a way to do that, hopefully with aim counters, should be helpful to them at least.
But you still need an arrow for aim counter. Runeblade can still make rune chance. They can still swing a weapon.
That's why I say they bank resources for next turn because they turn the resources in their hand into rune chance.
Yes.
So if you give Ranger something that they can bank for next turn, that will help alleviate the feels bad of no arrow hands.
Yeah, but you're talking about aim counters, and you need specifically arrows for that. I don't know.
I mean, I don't know. We'll see.
Anyways,
that's why you run Blessing and Focus, so you can play that instead. I don't know.
Yes, instead of more arrows in your deck.
Yeah, so Silver the Tip, right? That's the other Ranger card that like
instead of more arrows in your deck.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Now that we've gotten that out of our system, let's move on to Oliver's favorite class, Runeblade.
Fuck Runeblade.
Okay, Kenny, what's your opinion on Runeblade cards?
I mean, this is the. Sorry, I'm just reminding myself quickly of all of this. This one's the one where it cares about pitch. Yeah, cool. Like, I mean, I like that the design space is still feels distinctly Runeblade, but it still cares about both action types, but it's caring about them in a different way.
Yep.
Other than that, I don't have huge opinions on it.
I'm pretty hyped.
Some of the cards look like World of Warcraft cards. I will say, like Runic Reaping looks like straight out of WoW.
Yeah, 100%. It looks like a Draenei, like a couple of Draenei, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so my opinion on these Runeblade cards is I actually like a lot of them. I like the pitch matters because it's contrary to existing Runeblade playstyles where it's just hand vomit, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think pushing that archetype is a little bit better. The ones that require 2 cards pitched, I don't think we'll see play, just because it requires 2 cards pitched, and that's like super inefficient. I know cards like Deathly Duet and what was the other one? Runic Reaping. Those ones are currently being played in existing decks, which is fine. It's not that much of an upgrade. Other than that, Annals of Sutcliffe, unfortunate name. I have no clue how good it is. I'm pretty sure it's bad, but it's baffling to me that if it's bad, how bad it is.
Oh yeah, it looks really bad.
Yeah, it looks really bad. It's like, okay, I could just use Grasp of the Arcanine for a rune chant instead.
That's right. I could just do this instead, or I could, like it does look pretty terrible.
Yeah, especially since the pitch matters mechanic only counts the cards that you pitched to activate that ability, not existing cards in your pitch. Mm-hmm. So not only can you just like not ride off of extra resources off of a Grasp of the Arcanine, but you have to like specifically pitch 2 cards for it. Doesn't even have to go again. It's really weird. The Tiara, I like it. I like the idea that that it's a very pretty princess crown for Viserai and Chain. I also don't think it's very good, but it's kind of cool. It's both Blade Break and Arcane Defense. And Looming Doom is my favorite card in the set. It's just good. It's just fun. It's fun to say. It's fun to play. It has a couple of tricky plays that you can make with it. And it's a archetype that is about slowly whittling your opponent down, which I do like.
Yeah, I do like Looming Doom's design overall. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a fun build around that you can that you don't mind drawing late or early. Yeah, that's about it basically. It's other than that, it feels mostly safe. Skyfire lanterns, we have that and water glow lanterns in Illusionist. It's really bad, but it's interesting in that the blue one isn't strictly worse than the red one.
Yeah, it is. It is interesting.
Yeah, and that's the most you can really say about it, honestly. Okay.
Alrighty. Shall we knock off the next two?
Yeah, let's go for Wizard and Illusionist, and let's go through everything. Wizard, we got another staff effect that really wants to be amplified, with no cards in the set that amplify staff damage. Yeah, that's kind of awkward.
Yeah, it is awkward, right? Because I mean, naturally they're just going to prevent the 1 damage from the staff, right?
Yeah, exactly. So just like paying
So
two
cool.
mana, 2 resources for a worse Crucible, a less consistent Crucible of Aetherweave.
Cool. Next.
Yeah. Seer Stone, it's in the same category as Suckcliffe Anal. It's just kind of there. I don't know why it's there.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I'd rather just play, I don't know, Crucible of Aetherweave. Mind Warp, which also has an unfortunate name. There's a lot of cards in this set, in the Wizard set, that are just strict upgrades to Arcane Rising cards, and most of them are they just have Surge. They're not like amazing upgrades, especially for Icelander, but I do find it interesting that they're willing to power creep these basic cards.
Mm-hmm. Well, as you said, it's probably just because they weren't at the space that they wanted them to be.
Yeah.
And I mean, I guess also they just don't do anything interesting. Like if you look at, as an example, take, I think Zap is the very, very basic. It's the 3 damage, 2 damage, 1 damage one, right?
Yep.
Like, all the wizard cards from Arcane Rising didn't do anything interesting apart from the fact that they were arcane damage. That was their interesting gimmick.
Yeah.
Right? But all of the other, like, if you look at Assassin in this set, all of the basic attacks still do something slightly different. So I think maybe this is just their way of kind of retroactively doing that.
Yeah, it's also upping the natural complexity of the game as well, right? Where you have much less straightforward abilities that you can utilize at any given time as an additional option, even if it may be niche, like Sap. Brainstorm. Oh, Brainstorm's fun. I love Brainstorm. There's already been a combo deck made of it. Have you seen it, Kenny?
I have not yet, no.
Okay. If you had to take a wild guess, how would you build this Brainstorm deck?
I imagine you would try. You'd want to have multiple brainstorms in play. I'd imagine, like you'd want to trigger multiple them on a single turn. You'd need a big hand already, and then I imagine you'd play like the head that lets you mulligan. And then like other abilities that let you mulligan if there are any.
Yeah, there's a potion. There's a potion of luck that lets you. That's the same effect. And there's also Sift, which is you play it and you mulligan 4 cards, 4, 3, 2 cards.
Yeah.
So, do you remember what Knick Knack Bric-a-Brac does?
Not off the top of my head. I love that name. Every time I hear it, it is a ridiculous name, but at least it's fun.
Basically, it gives you a free item from your deck. It chooses a free item from your deck for 3 resources. And for every 4, 2, or 1 copper, silver, or gold you sacrifice as a cost of playing it, you tutor for an additional item.
Oh, okay. So you tutor for multiple of the mulligan item.
So the combo is get Brainstorm or another draw spell in your arsenal. Get 1 to 2 energy potions and 1 to 2 potions of luck with Knick Knack Bric-a-Brac. And then you go ham. You spend the energy potions to Blade Brainstorm and you just start mulliganing and then activating Kano's ability until you deal like 15, 16 damage. And then you just dig for your Blazing Ethers and you just chain 3 Blazing Ethers at once. It is hilarious. It works 5% of the time and it's really fun.
Crazy.
So I love that this exists. It's a very fun card. It's a great card to have in the set. Brainstorm
I like it too.
Brainstorm and Mind Warp are both interesting cards. Mind Warp especially because nobody wants to play Yellow Zap, but the Surge effect makes you kind of want to play because it's kind of fun.
I again like Brainstorm specifically because again it's another callback to another game. Like I enjoy the fact that it references MTG. It's cute.
It synergizes with MTG Brainstorm too.
It would, right?
Yep. Yeah, cool cards in overall. Any thoughts, Oliver? I know you play one wizard.
I like the sorcery speed stuff, like Blessing of Ether. If they're going to do more of that, probably the direction I want.
Yeah, like that, plus like Aether Quickening seems like a very sorcery based deck. We've added most of these cards to our cube. for reference, are Wizard and Ranger Cube. But yeah, they're okay. They're pretty good. They should be fun at least. Okay, Oliver, let's talk about Illusionist. Let's talk about Soraya. What do you think about Soraya?
She's cool. I don't think she's great, but I think she's cool.
Do you like the design?
I mean, without Luminaris, it's kind of hard to judge where they're going with this. But if they are going to have additional allies for Illusionist, for Light Illusionist rather, I think it'll be actually pretty cool. That's actually one thing I'm looking forward to next set if they have Light Illusionist, which they should. As for like upgrading Spectral Shields, I do like how it is like Spectral Shields matter and it's not actually like easy to get out because sometimes Spectral Shields will die. And it's funny how it has Ward 4
Yeah.
rather than Phantasm because you know the dust gives us the dust gives it Phantasm, but not the
Yeah. So
Spectral
rather
Shield has
than
Ward.
your ally is protecting you, it's you have to protect this ally to give it value.
Yeah. So overall, I think I really like it.
Any thoughts, Kenny? It's a lot of text.
It's weird. I find it weird that you obviously can't play it really legally at the moment, right? Because I mean, I'm talking about Classic Constructed, right?
Yep.
So it just feels weird to have a card that's just not legal. I understand that happened with Merchant ages ago as well.
Yeah. Also, just like
But-
a bunch of young heroes, right?
Yeah, exactly. It just I always find it weird. But I don't have any particular problem with the Illusionist stuff. I like Illusionist. I've mentioned this before, I think, but I like Illusionist base, like not necessarily Light Illusionist, but what they're trying to do with Illusionist as its core, I think is pretty fun and pretty cool.
Yep.
So yeah, like I think the Illusionist cards in this set kind of match that.
Yeah, a lot of the set in general is just like specific cards matter, and they chose Illusionist with Spectral Shields, which indicates that if they ever do make a base Illusionist, she's also gonna make or key off of Spectral Shields. So hopefully that comes around soon because I do want to see a base Illusionist. I really want to like Celestial Kimono, but I don't think it's good. I don't think it's playable. I don't think it's even like meme playable. It's just bad.
It's honestly a PvE item, I think.
I guess so. It must be a PvE item because otherwise it's like it's an engine that dies as soon as you go below 40.
Yeah, I feel like in PvE there's a way for you to not get hit. So that's why they have Blessing of Spirits, they have the Celestial Kimono, they have the Tome of AO. So I feel like all those would be key in PvE, but not necessarily CC because it's just so easy to leak damage.
Yeah, definitely. If they were like, because like you can totally see where they're trying to go with, right? You're trying to like chain these auras by playing Celestial Kimono. It's like whenever you destroy aura, you get the resource you use for the next aura. But I don't know, it just feels so weird. The other cards are interesting. Phantasmal Symbiosis is a very fun card. I like the design space there. The rest of the cards feel relatively forgettable. Which is interesting because like I don't think most of these are very interesting, but all of them do unique things that haven't really been done in Fab before. There's a lot of them. Like Tranquil Passing is the first Banishing Light type card that we have.
Mm-hmm.
And like we have Tome of AO, which is just weird. I don't know. We have ward equipment that just like get destroyed as soon as you get hit. I don't know. It's so weird.
I for one really like Tranquil Passing because yeah, as you said, it's the first Banishing Light effect, and it can remove Channel Mount Heroic.
Yeah.
Maybe for like a turn.
Yeah.
Maybe for like a turn, but I do like that kind of stuff. It seems like we're playing prison effects would be a lot more interesting for like interaction, hero interaction rather.
And Tranquil Passing also removes tokens permanently.
Yes,
So like you
permanently,
get rid
yeah.
of I don't
Other
know,
spectral shields, rune
Soul
chants,
Shackle.
soul shackles, yeah.
I don't know what else.
Sorry, it's or a token. My bad. So I was gonna make a joke about aim counters. But no, not quite.
What do you think of the art? I think most of the art in Illusionist is really good. This set.
Blessing of Spirits really pops in foil.
Yeah, it's like this weird like harmony rainbow unicorn type stuff.
Yep.
Yeah, I think the Illusionist stuff is really, really strong generally. Just the light blues mixed with the dark blues are just a really, really pleasing color palette. So I think all of their cards generally look really good.
Yeah, and they've got a subset theme of Japanese style Illusionist cards with like Spectral Possession, Spectral Rider, and Water Glow Lanterns. So I don't know. Maybe it's interesting. They're hinting at something for Mysteria. Who knows?
Suppose we'll see.
Yep. Okay, and now we're on to the final section, which is generic cards, of which there are not many of note. Anything
Yep.
stand out to you, Kenny?
I have basically no comment on any of them. They're just fine, like Crown of Dominion,
bad.
whatevs.
They're
Like,
just so bad. I don't know.
yeah, it's none of them are interesting. I mean, probably the most interesting thing is Ornate Tessin, because at least it's offhand.
Yeah.
So like, you know, potentially some heroes can like do a one-handed dual wield with the fan. At least that's something different.
Mhm.
But yeah, everything else, whatevs. Put a crown on your head and then do some random shit.
Yeah. I will say the issue with Crown is that people expect the design to set a precedent where equipment can give talents, but that's not going to be how it works out in practice because equipment giving you talents does not allow you to run talented cards in your deck of that talent.
Mm-hmm.
So I think people are going to get blindsided, or they'll expect something and then it won't come to fruition
Mm-hmm.
due to this precedent. The gold token is actually very relevant. It's seeing play in heroes that I wouldn't expect to just because of the gold token. I don't know why, but like Dromai is running it. I heard that there's a couple other heroes that are running it. I can't remember off the top of my head, but just like I'm very surprised at seeing play, even if it's just like casual play.
It's so you don't brick on your first hand.
Yeah, for Dromai, makes sense.
I,
But like, I know people running it with cash in for the free pot of greed.
Mm-hmm. Classic pot of greed.
Yeah, that's what they're running at. Briar's getting a free pot of greed.
yeah, for the items, I feel like they kind of fumbled by not having them have go again, because they don't
They're so
block. They take an action to
They're just-
set down, and they also cost resources. So you're
Yeah.
probably not going to be able to play them unless you're Kano or the game slows down immensely.
They're just so bad. Like,
Yeah.
why would you run Imperial Edict over
Chains of
Chains of
Eminence?
Eminence?
No
Yeah,
idea. Because I guess it's there until you're ready.
I guess. Same with the like Imperial Ledger. You're never running this without the crown, right?
Yep.
Like, and even with the crown, he's like, okay, cool, you get a gold token. I guess it's a free pot of greed. I don't know.
It's okay. 2 years from now, when they release the next, when we revisit where
Revisit
are we?
Merchant.
Volcor. When we revisit Volcor again, we'll have more royal cards. So
Uh,
yeah.
yeah, we'll also revisit Merchant, so maybe we can use gold better. I don't know. There'll be more gold generators.
Yep.
Who knows? Okay, last thing to mention, or two last things to mention. One, Ponder and Spellbane Aegis are generic, which means that in future sets you will get non-wizard Ponder cards and non-warrior Spellbane Aegis cards. So that's kind of cool. And then we also have the first fabled reprint of Command and Conquer. You've mentioned affordability before, Kenny. What do you think about this one?
I mean, it's good, right? That you have access to more of a stable card, so I have no real problem with it. It's fun.
I think it's interesting that it's the most expensive, or it's one of the most expensive fables right now, just because everybody knows it's playable.
Yes.
So maybe they'll do that in the future. We'll get like a fabled Enlightened Strike or something.
Yeah. So I may have misunderstood the question. I mean, as a fabled, like it's kind of weird, I suppose, because like it is weird that it's not its own unique card. But I mean, it's still more Command and Conquers. Weirdly.
You know what this should have been? This should have been Hidden Dragon.
Yeah.
It
It would have been thematic too, right?
Yeah. Should have been just like a ally that you summon if you've played like 5 Crouching Tigers the last turn or something. Who knows?
Yeah.
Make it like super bad. I don't know, but I don't know. Anyway, yeah, that's about it for Dynasty. What do you think? What are your thoughts of the set overall? Ranger aside, or maybe Ranger inclusive.
I mean, I think there's some hit and misses. There's some classes that have good stuff going on, and then I think there's some classes that have really uninteresting stuff going on. It's not like the worst set ever, but
Mhm.
I can't say I'm like enthused by it.
What about you, Oliver?
Usually, supplemental sets are my favorite. Like Crucible of War is my favorite set, hands down.
Mhm.
But I think this one kind of missed the mark.
Why do you think that was? Is it just because it wasn't like interesting, or too many like weird archetypes that didn't really pay off anywhere?
Disappointment in Ranger,
No, okay.
honestly.
Big crushing disappointment.
Yeah. I feel like if you're like a Guardian player, you're just like, wow, this set is trash. Or
Hey, you got Buckle. You got one card.
why would, yeah. You got Terra Thunder still.
Yeah,
Then
but this is like Terra Thunder number 3 through 4 through 6.
Yeah. Or if you're like a Runeblade player, you're like, oh, I got another Spellblade Assault. Cool.
Yeah, that's reasonable.
So
I feel like a lot of this was spent too much on setup and casual play. So a lot of like I don't want to say more competitive minded, but like a lot of the more like optimization minded players are very disappointed with this set. And partly it is because that Fab has conditioned people to think about optimization a bit too much, where they've pushed the competitive scene, and a lot of the discussion is around optimal lines of play, and a lot of the talk is about winning turn cycles, and a lot of the talk is about like maximizing the effectiveness of your hero, where casual like mess around decks aren't really encouraged. So I think this is trying to appeal to an audience that has not yet existed in Fab.
I think the other thing as well is that I don't know if Fab lends itself as well to that casual stuff generally anyway.
Yeah.
Like, there's not enough memey or fun stuff you can do. Like, I can imagine that, even in the I might be wrong, but in the early days of like Magic the Gathering and stuff, for example, there probably weren't as many meme decks or fun things as well. People still probably thought competitively minded.
I will say that it's different from Magic, because Magic competitive scene doesn't really establish itself until a couple years in, and so like a lot of the initial play was just like kitchen table Magic.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, if you compare it to like other games, like maybe like Netrunner, maybe I don't know. Netrunner is never really like super casual either.
Yeah, that's fair. It did jump pretty competitively pretty quickly.
But yeah, it's interesting to see how it'll play out. I think a lot of people are riding their hopes on PvE just because they need some justification for why most of these cards exist. Because if there's no casual minded format, then there's no reason for half these cards to exist, especially in a set that doesn't lend itself to draft.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we'll see. It feels like this is one set that we have to have the surrounding sets, including the next set, for context, and we don't have the context yet, so we can only say, well, this is kind of meh or kind of bad.
Gonna only speculate from our armchairs.
Exactly. But yeah, honestly, overall, I think it's a very average set. I find it telling that aside from Assassin, it wasn't hyped up very much by LSS, at least compared to other sets. So maybe that's either a change in their marketing strategy, or if they think this is not super exciting. Yeah, we'll see. Cool. Anything else you guys want to mention before we head off?
I think the set was not fun to open either. I think that was also another point that makes me not like the set as much.
Yeah, I got 0 marbles, so I know that feeling.
Yeah. Other than that, it's fine. It's more cards to play with. That's always like the baseline for me.
Yeah. Alrighty. Well, if that's it, I'll see you guys later. Thank you for watching. And then we'll talk to you when the next set comes out, I guess. Or I guess we'll have a special episode for Scrap, I guess. Yeah, let's do that.
Sure. Well, you could hear the resident person who all he does whinges talk about his game and shill for it.
Yeah.
We'll give it a go.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Okay. See you guys later.
Have a good
Bye.
one.